Q6674. What should be the indication on the magnetic as you roll into a standard rate turn to the right from a south heading in the Northern Hemisphere? A. The compass will initially indicate a turn to the left. B. They will indicate a turn to the right, but at a faster rate than is actually occurring. C. The compass will remain on south for a short time, then gradually catch up to the magnetic heading of the airplane. The correct answer is B. When an aircraft rolls into a standard rate turn to the right from a south heading in the Northern Hemisphere, the magnetic compass will initially indicate a turn to the left. This phenomenon is known as northern turning error and is caused by the interaction between the Earth's magnetic field and the compass card. In the Northern Hemisphere, the vertical component of the Earth's magnetic field is stronger near the North Pole and weaker near the South Pole. As a result, when an aircraft is in a banked turn to the right, the magnetic compass needle is influenced by both the horizontal component, northward, and the vertical component, downward, of the Earth's magnetic field. During the initial phase of the turn, the downward vertical component of the Earth's magnetic field causes the compass card to tilt. This tilting results in the compass needle indicating a turn to the left, opposite to the actual direction of the turn. However, as the aircraft continues the right turn and establishes a steady rate of turn, the compass needle gradually begins to align with the new heading. At this point, the compass will indicate a turn to the right, but at a faster rate than is actually occurring. This is because the compass card is still influenced by the vertical component of the Earth's magnetic field, which adds an extra turning effect. 6681. Which statement is true about the effect of temperature changes on the indications of a sensitive altimeter? A. Warmer than standard temperatures will the aircraft lower than the altimeter indicates. B. Colder than standard temperatures will place the aircraft lower than the altimeter indicates. C. Colder than standard temperatures will place the aircraft higher than the altimeter indicates. The correct answer is B. A sensitive altimeter measures the pressure of the atmosphere to determine the altitude of an aircraft. The altimeter uses a sealed aneroid wafer that expands or contracts with changes in atmospheric pressure. The expansion and contraction of the aneroid wafer result in corresponding changes in the altimeter's indications. Temperature affects the density of the air, and changes in air density can impact the altimeter's readings. In general, colder temperatures result in denser air, while warmer temperatures result in less dense air. When the temperature decreases, colder than standard temperatures, the air becomes denser. As a result, for a given pressure level, the altimeter will indicate a higher altitude than the actual altitude of the aircraft. This is because the altimeter is calibrated based on standard atmospheric conditions, which assume a standard temperature lapse rate. The standard temperature lapse rate is the rate at which temperature decreases with an increase in altitude. However, when the actual temperature is colder than standard, the temperature decrease with altitude is steeper, causing the altimeter to overestimate the aircraft's altitude. Conversely, when the temperature increases, warmer than standard temperatures, the air becomes less dense. In this case, the altimeter will indicate a lower altitude than the actual altitude of the aircraft. This is because the altimeter assumes a standard temperature lapse rate, and when the actual temperature is warmer than standard, the temperature decrease with altitude is less steep, causing the altimeter to underestimate the aircraft's altitude. 7282. What is true altitude? A. The vertical distance of the aircraft above sea level. B. The vertical distance of the aircraft above the surface. C. The height above the standard datum plane. The correct answer is A. True altitude refers to the actual vertical distance of an aircraft above mean sea level, MSL. Mean sea level is a standard reference point used in aviation to establish a consistent vertical reference for altitude measurements. Altitude is a measure of an object's height above a reference point, and in aviation, it is typically measured in feet or meters. True altitude is determined by measuring the vertical distance between the aircraft and mean sea level, regardless of the underlying terrain or surface. This means that true altitude takes into account changes in elevation caused by variations in terrain, such as mountains, hills, or valleys. It provides an absolute measure of an aircraft's vertical position with respect to a standard reference point, which is mean sea level. True altitude is an essential measurement in aviation as it allows pilots to determine their vertical position in relation to the Earth's surface. It serves as a reference for navigation, airspace separation, obstacle clearance, and other important aspects of flight. 7287. Under what condition is indicated altitude the same as true altitude? A. If the altimeter has no mechanical error. B. When at sea level under standard conditions. C. When at 18,000 feet MSL with the altimeter set at 29 feet 92 inches. The correct answer is A. Indicated altitude is the altitude read directly from the aircraft's altimeter. It represents the height above a reference point indicated by the altimeter. However, indicated altitude does not necessarily correspond to the true altitude of the aircraft. The altimeter measures atmospheric pressure, and it is calibrated to provide accurate readings based on standard atmospheric conditions. However, variations in atmospheric pressure due to weather conditions or altitude can affect the altimeter's indications. Mechanical errors can occur in an altimeter due to various factors, such as instrument calibration issues, blockage or leaks in the pressure sensing system, or improper instrument installation. These errors can cause the altimeter to display inaccurate readings, leading to a discrepancy between indicated altitude and true altitude. When the altimeter has no mechanical error, it means that the instrument is functioning correctly and providing accurate indications based on the atmospheric pressure measurements. In this case, indicated altitude will closely correspond to true altitude. However, it's important to note that even when the altimeter has no mechanical error, indicated altitude may still differ from true altitude due to non-standard atmospheric conditions. Changes in temperature, pressure, and humidity can affect atmospheric density and, consequently, the altimeter's readings. 7288. What is absolute altitude? A. The altitude read directly from the altimeter. B. The vertical distance of the aircraft above the surface. C. The height above the standard datum plane. The correct answer is B. Absolute altitude refers to the vertical distance between an aircraft and the actual surface or terrain below it. It provides a measure of the aircraft's height above the ground, rather than a reference point such as sea level. Unlike true altitude, which is measured above mean sea level, absolute altitude takes into account the variation in terrain elevation and provides a more practical measure of an aircraft's height above the surface it is flying over. Absolute altitude is often used in aviation for terrain clearance, obstacle avoidance, and low-level flight operations. It helps pilots maintain a safe distance above the ground and ensure clearance from terrain features such as mountains, buildings, or other obstructions. The measurement of absolute altitude can be obtained from various sources, including radar altimeters, which directly measure the vertical distance between the aircraft and the ground. Radar altimeters use radio waves to determine the time it takes for the signal to bounce back from the surface, providing an accurate reading of the absolute altitude.